Happy fight day, everyone. Mike's MMA Picks here with your fight day quick card breakdown show brought to you by BetDSI as well as MMAOddsbreaker. We are here for UFC Vegas 60, where we have Corey Sandhagen taking on Song Yadong in a high stakes bantamweight matchup. 9 out of 13 fights on this card are favored to end inside the distance. I think we are going to see a high number of finishes. Today's card kicks off at 4 o'clock p.m. Looking forward to this one, where we have the first fight of the day at 155 pounds. We've got Cameron Van Camp at lightweight. Now, he's no stranger to lightweight. This is somebody who took on Austin Hubbard at 155 pounds. Taking on Nicholas Mota. Nicholas Mota, minus 160 betting favorite. The line has continued to close throughout the week. I think it's partially due to the massive discrepancy in size here and also Cameron Van Camp's grappling prowess. And that ties into Nicholas Mota's aggressiveness. So he could be potentially being lured into a bear trap, so to speak. I think this fight has a high likelihood of finishing. The odds suggest that as well. I'll be picking Nicholas Mota, though. Nicholas Mota, very, very aggressive. And we've seen Cameron Van Camp get caught in previous matchups. Dangerous spot, high volatility fight, especially as the curtain jerker to kick off the card here. Given Nicholas Mota. Second bout of the night, bantamweight matchup between Tony Gravely and Javid Basharat. Basharat, oh man, I had the under 2.5 in his contender series matchup where he ended up playing with his food, trying to teach his opponent a lesson in humility, and the fight ended up going over 2.5 rounds, which was a little shocking. Basharat, Trevin Jones victory last time out. Looks solid out there. Can strike, can grapple. Now he's up against Tony Gravely, who's a Appalachian State grappler. He's not afraid to use his hands, though. Doesn't hesitate to throw caution to the wind, and it's cost him a number of times in previous matchups. Gravely coming off of a win over, I believe, Johnny Munoz Jr. Gravely here is the better wrestler, but I have questions about his striking defense, and I wonder, has he turned the corner? That is my question here. Has Tony Gravely turned the corner? Now, Basharat still in his mid-20s, fighting out of a solid camp. I'm leaning towards Basharat. No play on the fight. Gravely could potentially come out here and cause Basharat some problems, especially if he's able to put Basharat on his back. But as we've seen in previous spots, Gravely can be his own worst enemy at times, especially late in fights. Let's see if he's turned that corner. Third fight of the night. Jillian Robertson taking on Maria Agapova. Agapova coming in as a plus 115 underdog here. Jillian Robertson, we know what she's going to try to do. She's going to try to ground Maria Agapova. You watch Agapova's last bout against Moroz, where Moroz basically was ragdolling her and having her way with Maria Agapova, who has a hole in her game as far as the grappling goes. Robertson, fish out of water on the feet. We're aware of that. There have been many times in her career where she's been on the wrong side of the striking, and this is another spot where if this bout takes place for any extended amount of time on the feet, Agapova could turn Robertson's lights out. And one thing I like about Agapova is her killer instinct. Both of these fighters, believe it or not, have some killer instinct to speak of. Robertson is going to be fishing for submissions here whenever they present themselves. And another thing about Agapova, she looks like she's in tremendous shape for this matchup. I'll be picking the underdog here. If there is a stand-up that takes place, it depends on also who the referee is for this bout. If this bout ends up on the feet for any extended period of time, Agapova is light years ahead of Robertson in the striking department. But then on the other side of the coin, you also have Robertson, who has a tremendous advantage on the ground in the grappling realm. So give me Agapova, and I think she actually gets this done inside the distance. So take a look at those. Take a look at those odds. Good morning. Grateful to be here live with you. Good morning, Donnie. Appreciate it. I also got a 10K run in this morning, 50 minutes, 8 minutes per mile. And I am back ready to go here. And we also have another matchup, an interesting matchup here where we have a rising star, so to speak, and Danielle Zellhuber. Zellhuber coming in as a minus 410 betting favorite, taking on Trey Ogden. Trey Ogden plus 310 underdog. Initially, when the odds opened and I was watching this line, Zellhuber looked like he was a solid play, and potentially he could be. This is a show me something spot. Zellhuber, you watch the young man fight, only 23 years of age, still developing right before our eyes. The fight on the Contender Series really showed us what he was made of. And I liked what I saw from just his length and his striking defense seemed to be up to snuff. Now, I've also seen Zellhuber get taken down during fights. And granted, he wasn't up against a very dangerous fighter who posed a significant threat via submission. But Trey Ogden does pose a threat here. And also, Trey Ogden has some slick reversals that I've seen in a number of his bouts. Coffee's flowing nicely today. Trey Ogden, his back is against the wall here. Horrible outing last time out. We saw him drop the ball big time in Trey Ogden's last UFC fight. Zellhuber, this is going to be his time to shine inside of the octagon, fighting out of a camp that's local to Las Vegas, coming together. I'll be picking Zellhuber to win, and I think he actually gets this done inside the distance, because you watch Ogden striking, there is some it's a little disturbing to see his defensive tendencies on the feet, and I think Zellhuber can capitalize on that. But the problem here also is you watch Ogden fight, and if he's able to lock in a guillotine, I have questions about Zellhuber's submission defense here. So this is a show me something fight. All right, let's see. We've got a few more comments here. All right. Sergio, good morning. Great to see you. Welcome back. Welcome back. Right. Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be here. And JP, yeah, well, you got to pick your spots, as I've suggested many, many times before. And this is an interesting situation here where we have Denise Gomes taking on Loma Lukboonmi. Lukboonmi is a fighter who has a tremendous amount of Muay Thai experience and not necessarily a grappling whiz. And also, Lukboonmi, undersized for the division, should be really fighting at 105 pounds if the UFC ventured in that direction. I would rather the UFC have a 105-pound division than 145-pound division. The stable of fighters is very thin. We saw Norma Dumont and others, very, very thin division. So you watch Gomes fight. She is very, very aggressive, and I think that's going to it's going to give Loma Lukboonmi opportunities to counter and to really be pinpoint accurate in her approach. I see Lukboonmi utilizing elbows here, and she's going to have to be cautious, be wary of emptying her tank, because Gomes is a fighter who does not go away, somebody who's going to plod forward, looking to bring the fight to lukboonmi. And Gomes' best path to victory is to march forward and attempt to smother and break lukboonmi via lukboonmi gassing herself by throwing volume on Gomes. So I'm not totally counting Gomes out here yet. She's only 22 years of age. She's a young Brazilian fighter who, how about her Contender Series bout, throwing the wheel kick, spamming it in the beginning of her fight. Not a very good look there. But if you ask me who wins this fight, I am leaning to lukboonmi. I'm not going out of my way to roster and back a minus 200 women's fighter, which is, even though lukboonmi is a credentialed Muay Thai fighter, I don't trust these fighters at this level. The Lupita Godinez fight, Godinez wrestled her to the ground, and lukboonmi had no answer there. But Gomes is not necessarily, that isn't her game. So give me lukboonmi, but that's a stay away fight for me. If you want to go utilize the bathroom and take care of your business during that fight, might be a good idea. Next bout, at 170 pounds, we've got Trevin Giles taking on Luis Cosi. Luis Cosi, we haven't seen since the Paletnikov loss, where he totally gassed himself out, and saw what happens when a fighter is the nail, or when they're the hammer and they're not used to being the nail. So you have to be concerned about how Cosi's going to bounce back here. He's taking on a veteran, someone who has fought legitimate competition time and time again. Trevin Giles. Trevin Giles is a tough fighter who has been smoked the past couple of bouts. Let's be honest with ourselves. So what we're looking at here, very volatile matchup. Trevin Giles, I slightly lean towards him. He's got the jab. He's got the cleaner striking. And also, as far as possibility of locking up a submission, Giles would be a candidate to do that. Cosi, I need to see more out of him. I want to see more out of him. This is a show me fight. And how is he going to bounce back here? This is a fighter who ran into some serious adversity and was versus a lower level opponent. That's key. Ran into adversity against a low level opponent and was not able to overcome it. So give me Trevin Giles here. I don't like the number, though, the minus 210. I do not like that number. Next up, we have a really fascinating bout at 145 pounds between Damon Jackson and Pat Sabatini. Pat Sabatini coming in as a minus 190 betting favorite. And this is somebody who has a knack for winning fights. You watch the Tristan Connolly fight, came in and out grappled the grappler, was able to pull away with a victory, but late in the third round showed some chinks in the armor. Pat Sabatini, one thing that also was concerning the Jamal Emmers fight, if you go back and watch that, he was put in some very difficult spots there. And Damon Jackson, hearing the moniker, the Leech, you watch his fights, he's somebody who's been trending upwards. He has a lot of confidence. I don't think Sabatini's the type of fighter who's going to take him out via strikes. Jackson, I think people may be sleeping on his wrestling here and his grappling in general. Somebody who seems to be one step ahead of most of his opponents. So it's going to come down to Sabatini. He's a little undersized for the division also against the Laramie fight. Laramie was undersized for that division as well. But you watch Sabatini fighting out of a great camp, somebody who is definitely putting in the work, somebody who I've backed in previous matchups. I lean Sabatini. I was hoping for a much better line. I would think this fight should be lined somewhere in the neighborhood of Sabatini at minus 150, 160 at most. 190 is a little wide here. I don't hate the idea of backing Damon Jackson here. I don't see Jackson having a significant striking edge. I've heard folks point that out in the past, but and Pat Sabatini, I believe he should be the favorite here, but I'm not going out of my way to make a play on this fight. If you gave me Sabatini around minus 140, 150, different story here. Damon Jackson is a solid grappler, solid fighter, and he's somebody who's not going to go away unless he gets knocked out, which I don't think that's going to happen in this spot. I'll be picking Pat Sabatini to win a decision. Now, next up, we have a the kids like to call it a fire matchup. Anthony Hernandez taking on Marc-Andre Barriault. Barriault coming as a plus 175 underdog, a fighter who's very sturdy out there, somebody who will break your will, someone who is tough as nails and is somewhat rudimentary. There's nothing, no flash from Barriault. Taking on Anthony Hernandez, who is he's an exciting fighter, somebody who will throw caution to the wind. He will overcommit on both strikes and submission attempts. Hernandez is a bit of a wild man out there, and we've seen in his last fight, I think it was against Josh Friend, who Friend had his moments. That fight was headed Friend's way at multiple points, and that was a short notice opponent. In this spot, I'm leaning towards the underdog here, Marc-Andre Barriault. He's going to have to stay away from the submission attempts because we know Hernandez has the potential to do that, but also Hernandez, as I previously mentioned, can overcommit in the striking department. And Barriault, sturdy fighter. This fight, if you look at the odds, fight doesn't go the distance to sitting at minus 142. I think this one is going to hit the scorecards here. I'm going to be predicting Marc-Andre Barriault to win a decision. I've got a comment here. Let's see. JP thought Damon Jackson looked a little drawn out at weigh-ins. Yes, he typically does, though. If you've watched him previously, the guy cuts a lot of weight, but he comes out of a great camp, Fortis MMA. And one thing I like about that camp is they're a loud corner, and I believe that can influence the judging. It's amazing how some teams, they're quiet and they'll actually be almost in a way talking down to their fighter during the bout. Like if you watch the Tony Ferguson Diaz fight, how many times did Tony Ferguson's corner tell him, "Don't turn your back, Tony, don't turn your back"? Basically letting their fighter know that they're making a mistake during the bout. That's stuff that should have been handled in the back room, in the training camp, not during those 25 minutes that they were scheduled to be in the octagon. Let's head to heavyweight, where we have a significant size discrepancy here in this matchup. Rodrigo Nascimento coming in as a plus 140 underdog. Somebody who is a massive heavyweight, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, fighting out of a solid camp at American Top Team, taking on Tanner Bozer, who I've liked the rise of Bozer. He is a striker. He's only 229 pounds, so not a large heavyweight, but what we've noticed is he's very fleet of foot, and he can move inside of that octagon. He's going to have to move against Nascimento, who's looking to take him down, looking to ground him out and submit Tanner Bozer. Tanner Bozer, I didn't like what I saw as far as the takedown defense. You watch the OSP fight, watch the Latifi fight. There are others where if he gets taken down, man, he cannot get up, except if he's able to scrape his hand on the on the octagon fence. That was he must have been eating his Lucky Charms, that matchup, to pull that off. And Tanner Bozer, he's going to have to get on Nascimento early and often and light him up with kicks and strikes and not let Nascimento get close to him. I'm not going out of my way to bet this fight. I think that the fight doesn't go the distance is in play, although it has widened a bit. I think that this fight isn't going to see the scorecards because Bozer could potentially, I know he's not known as for having heavy hands, but I believe he could knock Nascimento out here. And actually, that's going to be my prediction. I think Tanner Bozer will knock out Nascimento. You watch the Daukaus fight, man. He can be had. Nascimento can be had on the feet, and Bozer has the ability to do that. One thing that he does have is quick hands and quick feet. And you watch the Ciryl fight. How good does that look now, that loss? He hung in there against Ciryl, and Ciryl gave him a good fight, man. They were going at it. But the problem is Ciryl, he's not known for his takedowns, and Nascimento, if this fight hits the ground, will put Bozer in a very, very precarious situation. So I'd rather play the under 2.5 in this spot than Bozer straight or Nascimento straight. I think this fight does end via finish, and it wouldn't surprise me. Take a look at the Tanner Bozer inside the distance line or the knockout line for Bozer. I don't think he's going to be submitting Nascimento anytime soon. So give me Tanner Bozer inside the distance. Now, next up, we've got Alan Amedovski taking on Joseph Pifer. Amedovski is 0-3 in the UFC, 34 years of age. Somebody who initially missed weight yesterday and then got on the scale and eventually made weight. And then he says, and I quote, I told you nobody's going to take my money. That's what he said to his to the commission because he ended up making weight. Now, how much did that take out of him? Draining himself just a little bit more against Pifer, who, let's be real here, he hasn't deserved an opportunity on a main card, but here he is. Pifer minus 515 betting favorite. Amedovski, somebody who has the potential to utilize fight-ending strikes. He's a knockout artist. And beyond that, has run into some major issues. Now, he's fighting out of Vegas here. He did this camp here, and he's somebody who, for as long as it lasts, will fight hard for your money, but then it'll all evaporate when he gets erased. The challenge here is, how does Pifer get this done? Does it get it done via submission or via knockout? And is Pifer going to be over aggressive here and end up getting caught? Because right now he thinks he's said that he's going to murder this guy. That's actually his words. Amedovski, I like the under 1.5 here was playable around minus 175-ish. Now it's up to minus 190, minus 200 at some books. Under 2.5 also was sitting at minus 300 for a while. That protects you in case this bout ends up going a little bit longer than expected, but you also take on additional risk as well by backing minus 300. But I think if you go out of your way to attack both of those spots, it will put you in a decent situation, because I don't think Amedovski is going to be making it to the final bell here. And if he does have any success, he could potentially clip Pifer. So I'll be picking Pifer inside the distance, and to do so in round one. Round one could have been had for plus money. I saw plus 110 at one book. So give me Pifer inside the distance and the under 1.5, as well as the under 2.5 there. Now, I love this matchup. This Andre Fili, Bill Algeo matchup. I was at Bill Algeo's last fight against Herbert Burns, where we saw Algeo basically break Herbert Burns, and Herbert Burns is on the shelf here. He's going to be on the shelf for a while, recovering. His brother, Gilbert, ended up carrying him out of the arena. Joe Anderson Brito, what was that? Under a minute, took out Andre Fili. Fili wasn't completely unconscious, did get rocked, did get clipped. We didn't see much of that fight. It didn't get to develop. Bill Algeo doesn't have those type of hands. Bill Algeo, almost like a, what are those things that you see that fill up with air and they end up swinging their arms around? Bill Algeo, when he strikes, reminds me of those. Not necessarily a very fluid striker. He's a volume striker who does have a ground game, and he is positionally sound on the ground, can survive some positions, and can put himself in some great positions. The Spike Carlisle fight, was able to come back there. Ricardo Lamas fight, was able to do some work there. But then you also have the Ricardo Ramos fight, where he struggled. And against Andre Fili is not only a veteran of the sport, but also comes from a great camp and will fight hard for your money. The Charles Jourdain bout, there have been many others, Miles Jury, many others. He's got a great jab. He's a little bit longer than Algeo here. He also has the potential to grapple. I like Andre Fili here. Minus 120 was a solid number, I believe. And Bill Algeo is a fighter who will not give up on himself. One thing I loved at the face-offs was watching Bill Algeo and Andre Fili basically square off and say, I think it was Bill Algeo who said, I think they're undervaluing us here. Let's go make some money. And it should be a tremendous fight. I'll be picking Andre Fili in this bout. I believe he's the more precise striker, the more dangerous striker, better grappler when it comes to actually landing takedowns and wrestling. Algeo is slick. He's a slick grappler, but there's a difference in the type of grappling here. And I'll be picking Andre Fili to win. And Frank, you bring up a great point here. Great point. This is a perfect example of recency bias rearing its ugly head. But if you're on the Fili side, it works out in your favor. If that fight goes longer, which we're only watching one iteration of the bout, and we didn't get to see the bout take longer than it did. So we're raking in a little bit of recency bias in favor of Andre Fili here. And you also have to understand that Bill Algeo in this spot, he also is reaping some of the recency bias from his win over Herbert Burns. So I believe the value's on Andre Fili here. I'll be picking Andre Fili to win. Now, oh my goodness gracious, we've got a banger on our hands here in the co-main event of the evening. Wow, where we have about at 185 pounds, Gregory Robocop Rodriguez, plus 100, is a solid grappler, but he doesn't necessarily go to his grappling. I like his fights at the apex because you get to hear the sound of the impact. You get to hear him gassing out too. This is somebody who will walk right into the fire, and he's taking on Chidi and Juacani, who's rattles off 4 consecutive wins inside the distance. Somebody who is a very dangerous striker. Somebody who's going to have a reach advantage here. Somebody who's a finisher by trade. Both of these fighters will gun for the finish, no doubt. And how about that performance by Gregory Rodriguez against Julian Marquez, where he was basically shooting fish in a barrel? That was very, very impressive by Gregory Rodriguez. So I believe this is going to be a firefight from the opening bell. And who is going to be the last man standing? I could see Juacani knocking out Rodriguez. I could also see Rodriguez taking this fight to the mat and submitting Juacani. I believe The number for Rodriguez via submission is potentially in play, but can you trust Rodriguez to implement that path to victory? And that is my question. But I also saw fight doesn't go the distance sitting around minus 225, and I believe that has some value to it in this spot, considering the two parties involved in this specific bout. So give me fight doesn't go the distance there. And also, I like Rodriguez via submission. I could see something like that playing out here. Small, though. Next up, main event of the evening, where we have Corey Sandhagen, who is somebody who will fight hard for your money, no doubt. Now, he's taken a few losses recently. He's also taken some time off. And he's taking on Song Yadong, who's a streaking bantamweight, somebody who is extremely dangerous. Song Yadong, I believe he could have been had for plus 175, plus 180 at one point. Dangerous power puncher, still only 24 years of age. I don't even know how that's possible. He arrived to the UFC physically ready, able to perform and dominate fellow bantamweights. And here he is now at 24 years of age, taking on a Corey Sandhagen, who is a cerebral fighter, somebody who is he's somebody who focuses on his range, his length, his volume, and counter striking. And Song Yadong is a very aggressive fighter. We saw against Marlon Moraes, started coming out within the first 10 seconds of the fight. He's going to Moraes' body. And this is an amazing fight. I love this fight. And the thing about it also is that this bout is scheduled for 5 rounds. Can you believe that? 5 rounds, baby. So I'm excited about the potential here. Corey Sandhagen, I wonder what he took away and what he's willing to implement now against a fighter who is a very dangerous opponent. And I don't necessarily doubt Corey Sandhagen and what he implemented in his training camp, because he does seem to be getting better every time out, despite taking losses. I thought he won that fight against TJ Dillashaw. I must have watched that back 3-4 times, and he won that fight. It's amazing what the judges were seeing there. And then I was on Peter Yan. I was on Peter Yan against Sandhagen last time. That was just a little bit of a levels fight there, where Yan is just a level higher than Sandhagen. Now, where does Song Yadong fit in this bout? I proposed Song Yadong to face Frankie Edgar in his final bout at Madison Square Garden. It'll be interesting to see if that ends up coming to fruition. A legend, Frankie Edgar. In all likelihood, Song Yadong would probably brutally knock out Frankie Edgar in that bout, but that is a bout that may end up coming to fruition. Now, Corey Sandhagen, dangerous fighter, somebody who I believe is the rightful favorite here, especially considering this bout scheduled for 5 rounds. But it could be a very hairy situation. The first round or two, even the third round, Song Yadong poses problems at all times. Now, Corey Sandhagen is going to have to not only mind his P's and Q's, he's going to have to be aware that there's going to be some heat headed towards his chin and also likely towards his body. Sandhagen, the first fighter to the scales, somebody who looked a bit better, a little bit more muscular on the scales this time out. Did look a little drawn out. And Song Yadong is somebody who both of these fighters are going to fill out after the weigh-ins. So Song Yadong, much more physical fighter here. I trust Corey Sandhagen's cerebral approach to the fight and his volume to be the difference maker in this specific matchup. And I also think that the 5 rounds favor Corey Sandhagen here. Now, if Song Yadong gets this done, I would rather play Song Yadong inside the distance. But Corey Sandhagen at minus 185, minus 190, I think that that may be a play to look at here. Let's see. We've got some comments here. Frank says RoboCop has the fight IQ of a slug. He's better everywhere and will probably lose. Okay. Apollo likes the late start here. Okay. Thank you. Well, I'm happy to be putting out the podcast today, and thanks to everybody for tuning in. Song does slow down in the third round, and that's the key here. This bout's scheduled for 5 rounds, and it gives Sandhagen an opportunity to gain his reads and eventually push a pace on an opponent that will likely slow down over time. And I also think that the year or so off is helpful to Corey Sandhagen in this specific matchup. So want to thank everybody for tuning in today. Make sure to go get what's yours. Remember, if you are tailing anybody, look into their third-party track record. See if they are a legitimate winner or a loser. You'd be surprised. Some folks out there are putting out content, yet they are long-term losers. So just be aware that you want to do your homework, and also make sure to track your bets. Want to wish everybody a pleasant rest of your day, and fights start at 4 o'clock. So let's get going here. Let's get going. Take care, my friends.